It is 4 p.m. We're bringing developing news.
And the stories behind the headlines. This is Storycon. I'm Regina Lay. Naghang yung prompter.
Buti memorize mo, di ba? I'm Ed Lingao. Some stories we're watching this Wednesday, June 4. It's a hump day. Senators denied knowledge of any resolution seeking to dismiss the impeachment case against VP Sara Duterte. Senate President Escudero says no such resolution was filed, while Minority Leader Pimentel questions its authenticity. Only Senator Amy Marcos confirmed seeing multiple drafts of the circulating dismissal resolution.
Indig, Pilipinas and Representative-elect Laila de Lima urged the Senate to immediately convene and begin the impeachment trial of the Vice President. De Lima warned that if the Senate fails to act, they may seek intervention from the Supreme Court to question what she called an unconstitutional delay. She also called on senators to file
A counter-motion.
counter-motion to prevent the case from being dropped with the congressional transition. Transport Secretary Vince Dizon admitted that the public transport modernization program is no longer viable in its current state. Dizon says most transport cooperatives struggle to repay vehicle loans, while only 40% of PUJs have consolidated nationwide. He also revealed that less than 20% of LGUs have completed route rationalization, further stalling the program.
PNP Chief General Nicolas Torre III warns that police officers who are caught, I suppose, with corruption or possibly with drug abuse. What are the other options?
Warns that police officers caught planting evidence
There
will
you
be
go.
dismissed and jailed. He cited a case where a lieutenant colonel and 9 others were imprisoned for a fake buy-bust operation. Torre issued the warning amid his directive to intensify arrests, not just of drug suspects, but all criminals. And joining us today, we've got Storycon's resident
Political heckler.
Ayun, ikaw na nag-brand. That's your new title, political heckler.
He takes pride in it naman eh.
Yeah, that's true, no?
Look at the smile, oh.
I think we need something stronger than heckler now.
Parang Cheshire Cat.
Hindi, Statler and Waldorf nga eh, of the Muppet Show.
Dami kasi nakakatawa sa ating bansa eh.
Ay,
Hindi ba
nako.
natatawa? Reg.
Hindi, balik, iba yung,
Have you been listening to her for the past week?
Ako, ako
hindi
tinatawa.
na natawa eh. Iba yung, I feel a different emotion from you. Okay, from the Philippine Star, we've got editor-in-chief,
Tumatawa ba to?
Ami Pamintuan.
Tumatawa ba
Hi,
yan?
Ami.
Ayan, tumatawa rin yun. Oh.
Seryoso yan eh.
Hi.
Tingnan mo naman,
Hi, happy Wednesday.
Lemon na lemon
ako, akala ko game over na, hindi pa nag-umpisa boxing.
Exasperated siya rin isang araw.
Kagabi raw,
Exasperated namin, tigil nyo na yan.
kagabi raw may binitawan si Ami na Sultan. Ang sabi ni Ami.
Sabi niya, bahala na kayo. Ang gulo-gulo.
Bahala na kayo dyan.
Exasperated na siya. Eh.
Ano, Ami,
Tuloy pa pala, tuloy.
feeling mo ang Republiko Paranaque kakalas naman, gano'n.
Tinan mo kayo, lahat denial na. Wala naman daw ganong klaseng resolution na nakafile.
Saan kaya nang galing yun, ha? Mahaba-haba yung resolution na yun. Sino kaya nag-type nun?
Pero ano bang natutunan
Inamin
natin?
ni Amy eh.
Yeah.
Na nakakita siyang 3
Kaya nga.
draft ng same resolution na yon. Oo.
Oh.
But I wonder,
we're talking-
where she saw it? Baka
Paano
may she saw it on
nag-circulate
social
Hindi,
media.
baka pinapaikot muna para makita kung meron bang...
To get
It's
the
a trial
pulse.
balloon.
may majority ba
To
na
get the sentiment.
Hindi mo naman pwedeng i-file ng matatalo. So, pina-float mo
Oh,
lang
hindi
muna.
naman file pa. It was being circulated.
Oo, circulated. Hindi ba naman pina-file?
Hindi pa siya final.
So trial balloon nga.
Yeah, just to get the
Hindi,
sentiment.
tinetesting yung sentimiento nung
Ano kung-
chamber.
Kung konti lang makukuha mo, edi wala. Ano, may kwan yun eh. May legal infirmities yan eh. The Senate, as a Senate, cannot reject an impeachment case. They can only reject
Yes.
it as a trial court.
So they have to
Wala pa,
convene as a trial court
wala pa sila
muna.
as a trial court.
What you're
Well,
saying is that they
June
can only
11.
convict or acquit. They can. They
Yeah.
don't have any other option but to convene as a
Yes,
court
yes.
No,
and
but
convict or
to
acquit.
hear it in the first place, right?
Yeah.
Before you get to the conviction or the acquittal,
But
you have to
yung-
convene and then you have to hear it.
Yeah. But yung implication kasi ni Chis Escudero the other day was it's up to the plenary to decide if they want to convene as an impeachment
Which
court.
is
Never nga
That's
nabanggit
what he
yung,
said 2 days
hindi nga
ago,
nabanggit yung constitution eh.
Yes.
Constitutional mandate yun, hindi naman mandate ng plenary. Yun.
Yes.
No, yun. Pero
So,
mamaya,
actually, marami ng constitutional violations itong proseso ito
yung mga
eh.
nandito naman,
Mga learned.
nagpapanggap lang na learned eh. Mamaya, meron
Oy,
tayong...
excuse me, yung
Hoy,
opinions...
meron akong constitution ha, binasa ko na yun. Public accountability.
Okay.
Separate article
Okay, so si
on
Ami
public
binas...
accountability.
Oo, kaya nga siya
yung-
hiniwalay
Article
eh.
ano ba? Article 11 yan? Ano ba?
Hindi, kaya siya hiniwalay. yung
Article
As a
impeachment.
function.
Dahil hindi na siya Senado eh.
Hindi siya legislative
No, iba
function.
na siya eh. Hindi na siya Senado pag nagsimula na yung impeachment as a trial court.
If I remember right, is it Section 3 ba? Of Article 11?
Article 11.
Oh, Article 11, Section 3.
Oh, yan, napabasa tuloy ng
Kaya nga nun, may
Constitution
lang
si
yun eh.
Abby.
May lang yung ano yun. But
Actually, yeah,
that's,
maiksi lang.
that's a clear mandate.
And
Diba?
there is no provision in the Constitution for an out for the Senate to say na
Yes.
We don't
we have
wanna convene.
options. So,
Correct.
it's a multiple choice, hindi ganun eh.
So, hindi nga tayo learned, pero si Ami, binasa yung Constitution. Ako naman, I consult with lawyers, constitutional lawyers. So, may basis naman yung
Wala ka
sinasabi
sa
natin.
lolo ko. Yung lolo ko, yung ini-invoke nila na si Jefferson, kainuman eh. Ini-invoke nila nung isang araw si Jefferson eh.
Uy, yung Jefferson manual.
So kung lolo mo si Jefferson, ilan taong ka na
Hindi, yung
ngayon?
lolo ko, kainuman siya. Kaya sabi ng lolo ko, mali ang mga pinagsasabi nila na yan, no?
Mali nga. It's not anchored on any real constitutional provision. Yun yung issue.
At saka mahalaga
Pero
kasi,
pag binasa mo yung reasoning, no, Ronald, dun sa resolution na yon, whether it's true or not, yung takbo ng reasoning dun has been presented actually to the Senate. Eh.
tama.
Yung ganong excuse na wag na natin ituloy ito kasi ganito. Actually, nabanggit na rin yun dun sa Senate. Eh.
Ang problema, yung reasoning na yun is, problema yung
Kung
reasoning,
may ganung constitutional mandate, di ba, if you're worried about the Supreme Court, hindi gawin nyo lang ang trabaho nyo at bahala na si Batman kung may magdadala nun sa Supreme Court, di ba?
Si Bato kayo
Bakit mo
nasisisi.
problemahin yun?
oo. Pero si Incredible Hulk magagalit eh. You wouldn't like me when I'm angry.
Alam mo, iba yun. Marvel Comic Universe yun. Iba yung Batman, DC
Iba
version.
yung Batman,
We're
no?
mixing it up pa.
Hindi, nagko-crossover.
Iba yan, oo.
Hindi, sa Pilipinas nagko-crossover
Usapan
eh.
natin eh.
Nagko-crossover sa Pilipinas
Iba yung Marvel sa DC.
Just like, pwede naman i-crossover yung impeachment from 19th to 20th.
Galing na
diba?
hugot, oh.
Pwede naman. It's very clear. The Constitution allows it, pero hindi ko alam saan yung galing interpretation ng iba.
Well, it comes from Arnold versus Nazareno of 1950. It's a decision by the Supreme Court.
Hindi na kainuman ng lolo ko yun. Si Arnold.
Pero si Jefferson, kainuman mo.
Oo. Si Jefferson, oo. Tsaka si Jefferson magaling.
Ganun lang, di ba?
Ay, nako, we don't know who you're talking about. Pero, ano ba yan? So, we don't know at this point. And the thing with the impeachment resolution supposedly to kill it, what we've learned from all these years of reporting is, usually, where there's smoke, there's fire. Diba? Parang, okay.
Yeah.
Parang yung very first impeachment complaints sa Congress, nag-start off and everybody was denying. Tapos biglang,
Tsaka
Karoon
ingat sila dahil yung impeachment ni Erap triggered an uprising. Diba? Pag nagalit yung tao,
Yes.
hindi mo alam kung saan pupunta yan.
Is it
diba?
safe to say then, Ronald, at this point, parang the ship has sailed, they missed the window, they missed the opportunity?
Depende kung anong ship.
Oh. No, I mean to say, yung, wala na yung yung parang wala na yung momentum. Now you're talking about potentially killing the impeachment when it should have been, triggered nung
Well,
ano pa lang,
depende.
Feb
Dahil,
March.
halimbawa, several survey firms ang sinasabi, yung isa ay 90%. Ang tingin ay dapat litisin, dapat ituloy yung impeachment. Yung sa SWS, sinasabi 89%. So, ibig sabihin, hindi talaga, buhay pa siya eh. Buhay pa siya para sa maraming tao. Lalo na mga Pilipino, nagiging lahat abogado pag impeachment eh. Lahat yan.
Uy, totoo yun.
Oo,
Sabi ng
lahat
UP,
yan,
they see a jump in enrollments. Oo, sabi ng
Lahat
UP.
yan, bawat kanto, may nag-i-interpret dyan. Diyan nga sa Philippine Star, sa baba niyan, pero ang dami dyan magiging abogado eh. Oh.
Meron akong
yung mga nagawa
konstitusyon,
ng
may
carboy dyan.
kopya ako. May
Di mo nga
kopya
si
akong
Ami, nagbabasa na nga
konstitusyon.
ng konstitusyon. Dati naman, di naman nagbabasa ng
Oo,
konstitusyon niya.
nagbabasa ako. Kahit naman ma-dismiss siya at
may
this point.
may Article 11 pa
in
siya
the
ngayon, no?
20th
Di ba?
Congress. Di ba? You can refile in the 20th Congress kahit i-dismiss nila.
Punta na tayo doon sa tunay na
Kahit-
learned.
Yeah. Pero kasi if you lose it now and then you refile, you lose political
December.
political clout in ascendancy. Parang talo ka na susubukan mo pa ba ulit? 'Di ba? May ganung rin na parang ayaw ng Pilipinong talunan eh.
But again, do you
Hindi
have...
naman yung
mga Pilipino, Pedrong Kuto eh.
lawmaker
Kahit
yan na
talo
gano'n.
na, kahit talo na mga Pilipino, Pedrong Kuto yan. Alam mo yung Pedrong Kuto? kahit, kahit lumulubog na sa kumuloy, hindi ko ganun pa.
Sa kumuloy talaga. Alam mo, hindi ko ma-imagine ang kuto sa
Ganun si
kumuloy.
Pedrong Kuto. Lumulubog na sa kumuloy, nagaganon pa.
Hindi ko alam, I don't know how to react to that. Uy, pero...
Pasok na natin ang
Pasok na natin yung learned talaga. Dito mga nagpapanggap na may alam eh.
Ito baka may lang
Okay.
sa kumuloy sa kuto to.
Let's bring in
Professor yan.
our
Professor
guest.
yan sa law school. Tsaka,
Former party list representative, lawyer, Attorney Barry Gutierrez. Welcome to Storycon again, Attorney Barry.
Hi sir. Good
afternoon.
afternoon.
Hi, attorney.
Pasensya ka na
afternoon.
sa mga
Good
amateur, ha?
afternoon.
Pasensya ka na.
Medyo magulo yung mga kausap namin dito kung ano mga kuto pinag-uusapan.
Hindi nga alam kung sino si Pedrong Kuto eh.
Nagpapanggap
Baka si
lang
attorney
kami,
alam
Leonard.
yun, ano yung Pedro
Alam
Cuto.
niyo, alam niyo.
Sige, tanong mo nga.
Alam niyo,
Tanong nga.
Oh. Ganito kasi yun.
Magpapaliwanag. Huwag ka na magpaliwanag.
May mga bully kasi, inaalas kasi Pedro.
Talaga may kwento pa eh.
I don't know what he's talking
Pedrong
about.
Kuto, ganun natawag siya.
Ano?
Ganun yun. Mga pastorya yun.
Mamaya.
Sabi mo kasi, paliwanag ko.
Tanungin niyo na,
Magtanong na
tanungin
tayo.
niyo na,
Kayo talaga ang gulo
attorney.
ninyo.
Sabi mo kasi, paliwanag ko eh.
Sir, okay. Ano Wok? You go first?
Go.
Sige. Sir, a lot of protests and angry voices over what's happening or what is not happening doon sa Senado with regard to the impeachment. Pero ang tanong ng marami siyempre kasi it's with the Senate now eh. What like it or not, we're just the captive audience now. What's the recourse here? What is the legal recourse here?
And is there a legal recourse
Oo.
if they decide not to convene?
Kahit, attorney, kahit hindi dinedenay ng Senate President itong lumabas na na mga papeles tungkol dito, resolution, no? Parang ang essence ng resolution, parang pwedeng i-deny, pwedeng i-reject ng Senate as Senate itong impeachment. So ano bang ganyan? Ano bang may ganyan ba talaga legal basis yan?
Pwede ba yun?
Well, una, dahil nga doon sa mga declarations coming from the Senate recently, particularly yung naging posisyon ni Majority Leader Francis Tolentino na kapag tumawid na into the 20th Congress, the Senate essentially loses its jurisdiction over yung filed impeachment complaint and it has to be refiled. Ano yun very very troubling yung mga ganung mga perspectives kasi kung titingnan natin yung paano tayo umabot sa puntong ito, hindi naman as if pinail to kahapon tapos wala nang oras di ba? Pinail ito December sa House of Representatives, sinampa nila yung articles of impeachment in February, and then for 4 months walang ginawa ang Senado. So to a certain extent, self-created yung crisis that the Senate is now claiming it is facing in terms of yung time remaining. Yung question remains, kung ang tingin pala nyo, dapat tapusin nyo within this term yung impeachment trial, otherwise hindi na ito tatawid sa 20th Congress, bakit nyo inupuan ng napakatagal? Why did you not have yung sense of urgency na yan when it was first filed? Why did you waste so much time saying na, hindi, merong campaign period, walang pupunta dito, meron kami mga kailangan ipasang ibang batas, and so on and so forth. Kasi, yun and that's troubling kasi ang lumalabas dito, kung gusto pala ng Senado, all they need to do is, hindi nila isa-schedule yung trial, they will let the time lapse, until yung term mag-expire. And then they will say, ay sorry, ubos na oras, kailangan i-refile na nyo sa susunod na Kongreso, which actually defeats the whole point of the impeachment process. Kaya nga very, very clear dun sa impeachment rules natin currently under Article 11 of the Constitution na may mga time frames May mga time periods. And then when the House actually files, ang word na ginagamit, forthwith. Hindi ko maintindihan anong mahirap intindihin dun. Any dictionary will tell you ang ibig sabihin nun immediately, agad-agad. And very basic rule naman of statutory construction, interpretation ng constitutional provisions ay the ordinary meaning is the meaning that is used. So, nagkakalukuhan na tayo dito di ba?
Yeah.
Parang inupuan, obvious naman na dinelay. And then if this will be allowed, it will set a terrible precedent for all future impeachments. Kung papayagan yung Senado na pwede palang ubusin nila ang oras, and then they will just claim, sorry, next Congress na ito, and hindi automatic na mag-refile, then they can effectively kill impeachments simply by doing nothing. So, mas malaki na yung issue dito kaysa doon sa issue ni VP Sara Duterte mismo, who ironically, actually, is one of the people who wants to actually have the trial at this point. So, ano yung recourse available? Well, actually, pwede ka mag-file ng mandamus, di ba, before the Supreme Court. And kung totoo na maglalabas sila ng resolution, supposedly creating invento na namang term to, de facto dismissal, pwedeng questionin yon before the Supreme Court. Ang problema mo lang, obviously, before the Supreme Court can actually rule on the matter, malamang sa malamang, umabot na tayo sa 20th Congress, in which case, iba na yung issue na pinag-uusapan.
Nakalagay kasi doon sa non-existent na resolution, yung de facto dismissal. Non-existent dahil walang gusto mag-claim.
So we just made up that term. Pero
De facto
actually,
dismissal.
that's a good point, attorney, no? Yung rule to proceed forthwith with trial is meant to protect both the accuser and the accused because it gives the accused a right to a speedy trial, which is, a right that's enshrined in the Constitution. Marami nakalimot na siguro noon that it also, it's a chance for her to present evidence to deny all the claims as she has done this entire time, right? Pero
Yes.
if hindi nga sila mag-convene as an impeachment court counter to what the Constitution calls for, what happens then? What's the scenario that we're looking at here? We're going to may crisis in the Senate then.
Pwede bang kasuhan yung mga senador, attorney, or sa balota lang ang hatol sa kanila? Pwede ba silang kasuhan dyan na hindi nila ginawa yung kanilang function? Meron bang kahit wala pang president?
Well, I'm sure, siguradong kapag hindi kumilos dyan, somebody will bring it to the Supreme Court. Una, meron ng pending na kaso si VP Sara Duterte. So that can actually be discussed by the court in the context of that pending case. Pangalawa, if the Senate actually passes the non-existent de facto dismissal resolution, I'm sure mayroong magpa-file din dyan sa Korte Suprema to question the constitutionality of such a move. Kasi kahit nabasahin mo yung buong Article 11 which talks about impeachment, walang nakalagay doon na may option ng Senate to dismiss an impeachment complaint.
Yes.
Di ba? Klaro that the only mandatory duty they have as an impeachment tribunal is to convene and hold the trial once yung articles of impeachment are forwarded, and then in that trial, tama si Ronald, either vote to acquit or to convict. Yun lang. Walang dismissal dito na pinag-uusapan. So actually hindi ko alam kung ano ang magiging constitutional basis nila for this. And then sabihin mo nang maipasa yan, tumawid na tayo, SONA na, next Congress na, and then they will say, kasi mukhang ang posisyon yata ni Senate President Escudero ngayon ay the plenary is supreme. Na parang kung ano desisyon nila, yun ang masusunod. Superior sila to the Constitution, in effect. Pag nangyari yun, I'm sure somebody will bring it to the Supreme Court and magkakaroon tayo ng ruling on whether or not yung impeachment complaint can actually cross over to the next Congress. Pero ako, babalikan ko lang yung punto ko kanina na hindi na tayo dapat umabot sa point na ito Kung at the beginning, yan pala ang kanilang pananaw. I mean, honest to goodness, ang tingin talaga nila, dapat within the same Congress ma-resolve ang impeachment complaint. Ang hindi ko maintindihan, bakit wala silang ginawa? Parang ano yan meron kang project na isasubmit para sa klase mo, alam mo na due may deadline, tapos pepetics ka ng ilang buwan, tapos pagdating ng deadline, deadline pala, sorry, hindi na namin masasubmit, hindi na namin mahahabol. Parang ano talaga yun yung para sa akin, napaka troublesome, di ba? At napaka-suspicious dito sa nangyaring ito. Dahil clearly, kung ganyan ang kanilang pananaw at ganyan ang kanilang ginawa, they had every intention to avoid an impeachment trial, which is contrary to kung ano yung sinasabi ng ating konstitusyon. So, may malinaw talagang paglabag na nangyari dito.
Attorney, yung non-existent resolution, ang ini-invoke na violate daw yung right to speedy trial ng accused. May basis ba yun? Kasi di ba meron nasa Bill of Rights naman yung speedy trial, kaya lang, pwede mo ba yung ini-invoke in that circumstance?
Unang-una, yung right to speedy trial, kung na-violate man, sino may kasalanan? Hindi ba sila rin? so punto, kung tingin pala nila, meron palang dapat pala na-resolve to kaagad. Di dapat, kundi na sila noong February. Parang ridiculous talaga sa akin yung sitwasyon na they will now make all sorts of claims na violate ang right to speedy trial, hindi naman continuing bloody ang Senate, therefore dapat natapos dito. Na kung totoo pala yan, di dapat inasikaso na nyo habang maaga pa. You had all the time in the world to do it. You had more than 4 months bago pa umabot sa June para gawin yan. And according dun sa timeline na pinrovide ni Senate President Escudero a few months ago, kung nagsimula sila ng June, dapat within 4-5 months tapos na sila. So kung sinimulan pala na dito noong February, di tapos na. Wala na sanang need to actually look at all these provisions and then use them as excuses as to why we cannot proceed with yung trial. Self-created ito self-created na problema. Sila mismo ang gumawa ng problema. Ngayon, naghahanap sila ng kung anong dahilan para gawing excuse yung problema na iyon.
Kasalanan niya ng Paris Fashion Week.
Oo, Paris Fashion. Kasi ni-schedule nila right
Ngayon,
now.
Milan Fashion Week.
Okay, masyadong maraming events.
Balikan ko lang yung tanong, kung sakasakaling umakit siya sa Supreme Court, meron bang penalty nga sa mga senators? Parang dereliction of duty, apart from huwag nyo na lang iboto yung mga yan uli. Ganon.
Yun yung sinasabi
Meron
ko
bang
kanina.
sanction in any way?
Meron bang cases na pwedeng i-file?
Wala kasing administrative, direct administrative
Yes.
liability, although yung ombudsman has a
Yes.
broad mandate to actually address any form of illegality or impropriety na ginagawa ng
Dereliction
mga
of
branches.
duty.
So pwede
Diba?
technically the dereliction of duty under the ombudsman, 'di ba? Ang gagawin mo.
Kalimutan na natin, tapos na boxing.
Technically, pwede silang masuspend, but
Si Ami Puminton po yun. Si Ami
hindi
Puminton.
ako sa doon sa ganun
So-
kaya nga this is so I personally find it very offensive. Kasi 'di ba, nilalabag ang konstitusyon, tapos niloloko pa tayo dun sa dahilan pinapalabas na hindi sinusunod lang namin yung rules. Hindi sinunod ang rules Yun yung malinaw Hindi kayo nag-convene agad Yung pa lang.
Pero,
Yun
attorney,
yung original violation
Opo, pero attorney, pero the fact is po, we're already at this point, talagang hindi matatapos itong impeachment na to within the 19th Congress. Sigurado na po yun. I mean, that's still a given already. The question lang is whether it will cross over talaga to the 20th. Now, my question is,
Yes.
by the way, what are your plans? What do you plan to do? Or do you or your colleagues plan to make any filings with the Supreme Court? Sabi nga ninyo, there are possibilities that there are legal recourses for lawyers to pursue to push this forward. Kaya po, meron ba kayong mga balak?
Well, may mga kinausap na ako who are actually already talking about yung intention to actually bring the matter to the Supreme Court. So that's something na kailangan ma-finalize in the next few days. And I think ang magiging trigger point yan is really kung maipapasa itong non-existent resolution. Pag naipasa yun, meron ka na kasing hawak na papel and you can go to the Supreme Court. Yes.
Actionable. In other words, pag i-dismiss ng Senado itong impeachment charges.
May relasyon ba yan, attorney, doon sa sinabi kanina ni Laila de Lima, doon sa press conference nila, na magsasampa sila ng mandamus sa Supreme Court?
Well, hindi ko alam
that's
kung
an option.
sino kausap ni Senator, ni Congresswoman-elect de Lima. Ako naman salimpusa lang ako sa mga bagay na ito di ba?
So, alam mo na yung Pedro Cotto.
Hindi ko pa rin alam Pedro Cotto.
Ito pala, pwede ba, attorney, pwede bang ipa-disbar yung mga senator? Hindi sila matatanggal na senator, pero pwede ba ipa-disbar?
Galit talaga si Abby.
Kasi,
Yung mga
di ba,
lawyers.
Yung mga lawyers can actually be subject to a disciplinary proceeding, di ba? Which can include a disbarment complaint. Yes.
Si Francis Tolentino, ang daming kwan yan MMA.
Yun, abogado yun. Yung mga nag-aaway-aaway doon, yung mga abogado
Marami siya mga masteral.
Masters. But okay.
Yeah.
So the elephant in the room, attorney, seems to be parang it feels like they're doing everything they can to try to avoid having to vote on the impeachment, right?
Yeah.
Because that will be obviously a very public thing. And either way, mababash ka, right? With whichever way you voted, at least that's what people are saying. Is that also the sense that you're getting?
Yes, tingin ko naman talagang ayaw nilang malagay sa posisyon where they have to choose, where they actually have to take a side, where they actually have to stand for something dito sa impeachment. They'd rather sit on the fence until malapit ng 2028 when they can conveniently jump to kung sino man yung tingin nilang magiging paborable sa kanilang personal political interests. Obviously, an impeachment trial will place a spotlight on each individual senator judge. Lalo na pag lumabas na yung aktual na ebidensya, diba? And depending on gaano ka bigat o gaano ka seryoso o gaano ka katiba yung kwentong maipapalabas during the impeachment, that will really put yung mga senators on the spot. Kasi kung halimbawa, ang linaw na meron talagang katiwalian na nangyari, kung alyado ka ni VP Sara Duterte, para namang napakalabo naman na in the face of ganitong klaseng ebidensya ay kikiling ka pa rin sa kanya. Diba? On the other hand, kung ikaw naman ay malalagay sa pwesto na boboto ka to convict, baka ang takot mo naman ay may balik sa'yo yung mga, doon naman sa level ng mga supporters ni VP Sara. So, they're obviously trying to avoid having to make that decision. Kaya, hindi ba kontento na lang sa let's have the trial and then pumoto tayo the way we want, pero wag na lang tayo magka-trial. Kasi para wag tayo lahat malagay sa alangan, which again, para sa akin is so offensive dahil ang nangyayari dito, yung napaka-importanting constitutional process na intended to protect yung mga ordinaryong mamamayan laban sa abuso at the highest levels is now bowing to political expediency and political interest ng mga individual na mga senador na mukhang hindi mahanap yung tapang na pumosisyon sa isang issue tulad dito.
Pero di ba, attorney, hindi naman surprising yon dahil yun naman talaga ang norm.
You do, Norm, pero that's not right because this is meant to be an apolitical exercise. And you, as a senator, you take an oath, diba? You take a separate oath as a trial, as a judge, right? That you will vote merely based on evidence. Right? So,
kasi masasabi ko, Sec Ronald, di ba, hindi ba ganun naman lagi? Dati pa naman ganyan ang mga senador. Pero in the past, yung mga senador had the decency to hold the trial. Diba? Ngayon lang makikita ng ganito kalanta.
Yun na nga So, okay. Because on the other side of it, hindi naman necessarily, we're not taking for granted it's going to be a conviction. What if yung evidence that they have on hand is so weak, di ba?
Exactly.
So we don't know what they're holding. It could be resibo lang na Mary Grace Piatos, whatever. It doesn't connect her directly to the what they're alleging. So for all we know, yun lang yung evidence nila on hand. So it could also benefit the Vice President. So the question is,
But they also had the video of her.
Ako kasi,
yung
ako
video, on the basis of that video, you can convict
That's
on...
one of the articles of impeachment.
iba kasi yung no namin sa no mo eh.
That's one of the articles of impeachment. Her active threat against the
Yun na yun. Is that
One of those.
evidence beyond reasonable
One of
doubt,
those,
though? Or you don't need
Hindi,
that high bar?
sabi niya, hindi niya sinabi yun eh.
Okay. Sabi niya, hindi
Sabi niya, hindi niya sinabi yun.
Oo nga, she didn't
Hindi
threaten.
sinabi niya, it's not a real threat.
Hindi, sinabi rin
It's
niya
a
na hindi niya
conditional
sinabi yun.
threat.
Nagbago na yung mga sinabi.
Conditional daw, conditional.
Teka, sir,
Tinigilan na yung argumento nga na sinabi
Okay, wait. Sorry.
pag grave threat, lagi may kondisyon.
Sorry, I have to break lang. Senate President Pro Tempore Jingo Estrada confirms the existence of a draft resolution
Oh, yun pala eh.
seeking
Hindi
to
na non-existent.
Vice President
So, hindi na
Duterte's
siya
impeachment
non-existent. Eh,
complaint.
talaga mga malicioso.
Sabi ni Senator Jingo, he saw the draft last Monday.
Baka naman also the draft on social
Oh,
media.
dalawa na yung nagsabi.
Dalawa na yung
Ivy
nagsabi.
tsaka
That's Amy and Jingo.
Ano tanong mo?
Kung may
Tanong mo?
kopya ako
sir.
ng draft,
Sir, I have a question, sir. Allow me to be maliciously, allow me to be a malicious devil's advocate here. Okay. What if, because the administration has seen the numbers so far in the 19th and the 20th Congress, and they see little hope of getting a conviction at this point, both in the 19th and the 20th Congress. So what if they're trying to defer action until they can swing public sentiment and the Senate sentiment in favor of conviction? That's one element. The other element is this. What if they're also waiting for the ombudsman to retire, after which they can pursue a criminal case?
Sabi naman nilang wini-wait.
oo nga, sa August na yan, lapit-lapit na nun eh.
Teka lang.
Kasi-
Never mind.
Alam mo, tawag dyan, waiting for Godot. Waiting for Godot yan.
Never mind the evidence, no? It doesn't matter. Basta tignan lang natin kung ano yung numbers natin sa Senado.
Oh, yun naman yun eh. In the end, kasi, sir, I remember the NBI conducted an investigation into the threats issued by VP Sara, and they filed already a complaint with the DOJ, but it's been pending with the DOJ for several months. Hindi gumagalaw for some reason. What if they're just waiting for the appropriate time to elevate it to the ombudsman, which is next month?
Una, let's be clear. Whatever criminal cases can be pursued, whether through the Department of Justice or the Ombudsman, that's a completely different process from yung impeachment. And whether or not the impeachment actually proceeds, whether or not the Senate convicts or acquits, pwedeng magpatuloy independently yung
Yes, sir.
yung criminal
That's true.
cases na yan. So walang ano yun, ibang usapan yun na walang kinalaman ni Cesarili dito. The first question that you were raising is, I suppose, more directly related dahil they're looking for numbers, parang ganon. They're
Yes, sir.
looking for public support
For
mas madaling
18+1.
mas madaling ma-secure yung conviction. Para sa akin, that's a dangerous game to play. Kasi gaya nga, I said at the outset, this is an issue that has gone beyond whether or not dapat bang makonvict si Sara Duterte o hindi under the articles of impeachment approved by the House of Representatives. This already goes to the core of how to properly conduct a constitutional process of impeachment. And ang worry ko dito kasi, moving forward, if you allow the Senate to do this now,
It's the
future
president.
Senates will now have this tool at their disposal.
Na optional pala, optional pala.
Ayaw nila tanggalin doon. Ay, uupuan lang nila. At para sa akin, ayun yun yung hindi katanggap-tanggap talaga dito eh. Kasi if you look at yung history of why we have this particular kind of impeachment process in the 1987 Constitution, it's anchored on yung experiences during martial law, na yung mga attempts at impeachment ni nung unang President Marcos ay lahat halos dead in the water sa batasang pambansa. That's why they put in reforms like they reduce yung required number para maakyat ng House to the Senate, kaya naglagay ng mga periods para hindi pwedeng upuan lang, kaya sinabing forthwith para malinaw that this is a trial that should proceed immediately and kailangang aksyonan. And if we just brush all that aside and say, hindi, the Senate can say, di, mas importante sa amin ang ang magpasa ng mga priority legislation na actually para sa akin, question mark kung talagang ginagawa pa nila. But sige, sabihin na natin, if they can say that, that means that they can just abandon yung constitutional duty and they can set aside every safeguard that is precisely put in place in this constitution to avoid yung pagprotekta ng Senate sa isang impeachable officer dahil lang aliado nila or dahil lang politically expedient para sa kanila. And para sa akin, yun yung mas mabigat dito regardless of how the impeachment trial actually plays out, kung matutuloy man.
Dagdag dyan, attorney, kung sakaling mag-fail itong impeachment na ito, maghihintay ka na naman ng 1 taon para mag-file uli.
Totoo.
At sa 2026, patay na yan dahil ang focus na ng mga politiko is 2028 presidential election. At possibly, after 1 year, baka lame duck na yung presidente para magtulak ng kahit anong impeachment process. At saka yung Congress mo, baka yung 260 na bumoto, baka 60 na lang ang matira, no, na boboto sa impeachment. No? Dahil nga, nanggaling ka sa failure at papunta ka na sa isang bagong eleksyon.
Oh, dali, may angel naman.
So mukhang may resolution nga.
So alam mo na, si Pedro Cuto.
Okay, attorney, since if there are no more questions on the impeachment, since we have you here, I was wondering if you could talk about yung cabinet revamp na hindi naging revamp.
Non-revamp.
Parang pakyaw.
Non-revamp.
What
Parang pinakyaw
did
yung
you
tanong.
think? Kasi it's been almost 2 weeks no since in-announce, tapos nakatatlong press conference na si E.S. Bersamin, and so far,
Mga presidential assistants lang.
last
Cabinet
kahapon,
retention pala.
Sino yun?
Cabinet retention, hindi revamp.
Sino yun? Sino yun?
So, what did you think? Supposedly,
Well,
bold reset siya,
yeah.
pero...
I agree that it did not live up to yung billing. Kasi, unang-una ganito, every midterm naman, it's expected na magkaroon ng some kind of changes in the cabinet. Every administration has gone through that. Pero this administration made it a point na gawing malaking issue. Diba na? Hiningi lahat ang mga resignations ng lahat ng cabinet secretary, lahat ng mga head of agencies. Obviously, to support a narrative na we're turning a new leaf. Diba? Parang talagang yung mga hindi nagpe-perform, papalitan namin, magpapasok kami ng mga dynamic na mga tao. Dahil nagre-respond kami sa pangangailangan ng tao. And then, yun nga, after all that build-up, wala namang any major change. Yung mga tinanggal, nilipat sa iba. Except for a few. Tapos yung mga pinasok naman na, while there are some good names there, di ba? Banggitin ko na yung aming dean, si Lelen Berderabe. For the most part, wala namang any groundbreaking, world-altering na talagang sobrang exciting itong appointment na ito.
Titillating.
So, hindi nag-live up to the hype. And nakakatawa dito, sila ang gawa ng hype, pero hindi sila nag-deliver on the hype na binild up nila.
Sila gumawa.
Do you there's some talk na all of this was just to ano palang sabihin, gently ease out si Solgen Guevara, because we know what he did, which is that he refused to advocate for the he refused to touch the case. Oo,
He refused to defend.
Sabihin, ginawa
defend
yung lahat,
the government.
Ginawa yung lahat
Nag-recuse
ng
siya.
huli balong na gano'n.
Ang
Para
bull.
lang
Well,
Sabi nila.
para lang
Sabi nila.
I doubt
Do
it.
you believe that?
I doubt it.
Well, I'll say this, di ba? Kung yun lang pala ang intensyon, napakahina naman nila if they had to go through this entire drama just to do that.
Oo nga, tanggalin mo na lang, ano?
I mean, nag-agree ako kay Ma'am Ami, di ba? There was clear basis to actually remove him when he actually refused to represent the government. And I think everybody would have understood kung he was asked to resign on that basis. Pero yung gagawa ka ng isang malaking production, lahat ng tao papasabit mo ng resignation, para lang siya yung ma-target. Well, para sa akin, kung yun nga yung dahilan, that reflects a level of weakness in leadership na hindi ko pa nakikita in a long, long time sa isang occupant ng Malacanang.
Oh my.
Hindi kaya may pumasok na na intervention kasi pagkatapos nung sinabi ng Malacanang na okay, we admit na the people are unhappy kaya natalo daw yung alyansa. May mga pumasok na mga voices from the house. Sinabi nila, hindi naman totoo ang dami-dami nanalo na administration sa Congress and sa local government. Hindi kaya pumasok yung ganung bakit nyo pagtatanggalin niyang lahat? Wala namang basis.
Well, kung gano'n, sa akin, dapat pumasok yan bago sila nag-announce na maghihingi sila ng ganitong resignation. Kasi magmumukha ka lang, it makes you look weak, ineffectual, and even insincere. Nagagawa ka ng isang malaking production na gano'n, and then ito lang ang resulta. walang na-deliver na any major na pagbabago. So, kung ganoon din pala, dapat na pag-usapan nila ng mas matagal. Kung sasabihin natin knee-jerk reaction to the election, yung ganoon, hindi sila dapat siguro nag-react kaagad, 'di ba? Maybe they should have given it more thought. Because ako, in the end, tingin ko it only damages yung credibility nung administration further.
Right.
Because you promise all sorts of sweeping changes, supposedly in response to yung poor performance in the midterms, and you don't really deliver. Even na lang sa level na mag-appoint ka ng mga bagong tao. Diba? Yun yung point. Kasi we're not even talking about kung nag-deliver nga ng aktual na programa at accomplishments yung mga pinasok nila. We're just talking about meron bang pinasok na mga tao na mukhang talagang exciting na appointments na talagang will shake up yung mga opisinang pamumunuan na nila. And even on that level, mukhang kinapos ito. So, disappointing, I suppose, is the kindest word to use dito at
And
this point.
especially since yung unang na-retain ay yung buong economic team. And we remember they said when they announced the cabinet reset, they said, we're listening, we hear you. But if they really listened, well, the survey after survey said yung top voters' concerns are economic in nature, right?
Yeah.
Hunger,
Yes.
poverty, jobs, food security. Sabi nga ni Ami kahapon, you pointed out as well na yung PhilHealth fund transfer was a big issue for the elections,
Yes.
right? Yung budget issues. And yet, ang unang na-retain ay yung economic team. So,
And yung Secretary of Health, na-retain. So, walang indicator actually that there was anything in the changes supposedly na inintroduce in the cabinet that was actually directly responsive to yung mga popular concerns na lumalabas sa mga survey. So ako, kung ganun din pala, dapat di na lang nila binild up. They should not have hyped it as something. Kasi, di ba, hype only works kung kahit paano meron kang proof of concept at some point, di ba? Pero yung i-hype mo, tapos wala, mas lalo pang nakakasama yun para sa isang administrasyon.
baka meron pa.
Unless malalim yung strategy, hindi lang natin maarok.
Oo, maybe.
Diba?
You don't know that.
Okay,
Maybe
ganun.
there's more to come, di ba?
Teka po, Bok, ipasok na
Okay.
Prof, teka, baka gusto nyo pakinggan to. Si Mian Osbantes, ang reporter ng Channel 5, is on the line right now. May clarity na kung saan galing yung
May breaking news si
non-existent
Mian.
non-existent na resolution.
De facto.
Mian, can you hear us?
Ay, Bong, magandang hapon po sa iyo. Dala ko ito nga. Nung unang tinanong si Senator Bato, medyo umaang-maangan pa siya kung saan nagmula itong, kung may nakita ba siyang resolusyon, itong draft resolution na pinapadismiss tayong impeachment complaint kay VP Sara. Pero ngayon lamang ay na-interview siya muli at sinabi niya na galing nga ito sa kanyang opisina, siya ang nag-initiate ng nasabing resolusyon dahil naniniwala nga siya na hindi pwedeng mag-crossover yung impeachment kay VP Sara. So para sa kanya, technically, wala nang magagawa ang 19th Congress dito kung June 11 pa naman din mangyayari yung lahat ng proceedings. So sabi niya, para sa kanya, ang paniniwala niya, ang stand niya, kaparehas nung sinabi ni Senate Majority Leader Francis Tolentino nung Lunes na functionally dismissed na ito. Kaya yun din yung laman nung kanyang reso. Bok.
Naipile na ba niya itong resolution na to? At number 2, meron na bang sumang-ayon sa kanyang mga senador na willing pumirma?
hindi pa malinaw kung na-file na niya. Kasi yung kumakalat mo, kung nakita mo, unnamed, undated,
Yep.
at unnumbered. Sabi hindi pa na-file, di ba? Pero aminado siya na pinapaikot na niya sa mga kapwa niya senador yan. Kung sa bilang, wala pa siyang masabi kung ilan na, pero may ilang parang medyo nagpapahaging na kaparehas nung paniniwala ni Senator Bato de Rosa. So for example, dating Senate President Sig Zubiri, siya rin naniniwala na walang crossover. Kumbaga hindi inaalaw sa Senate rules yan, yung crossover. Sabi niya, so kung yun yung magiging laman daw ng resolusyon ni Senator Bato de Rosa, pag makita niya, kasi hindi pa rin nakikita ni Senator Mig, sabi niya malamang ito ay pagdebatehan sa Senado. At ang pagkakaalam daw niya, nakaschedule yung debate na yan sa reso na yan, sa darating na susunod na Miyerkules. Yung araw kung kailan na magko-convene supposedly ng impeachment court ang Senado.
Oh, Miyerkules talagang 11 talaga, no?
Mayan, do we have any idea kailan siya, when it was being floated? Kasi as of last night, 10 p.m., sabi ni Senate President Cheese, sabi niya, no such reso filed nor pending as of last night when I left a little before 10 p.m. Yan yung quote na nakuha natin sa kay SP Cheese, no? Pero do we have any idea from Senator Bato kailan inumpisahan may i-float itong resolution na to?
Mukhang June 1.
Nako, Rich, kung si Senate President kang tatanungin, actually hindi lang kagabi, hanggang kaninang umaga, sinet daw niya, walang nakafile, walang nakapending na sinasabing resolution to dismiss impeachment case ni VP Sara. Pero nagkaroon din ng interview kanina lamang kay Senate President pro tempore Jinggoy Estrada at siya mismo ang nag-compare marriage na nung Lunes pa pinapaikot itong resolution na ito. Nung tinanong siya, sino nagpaikot? Sabi niya in confidence, ayaw niyang sabihin kung sino. So, mismo yung pangalawa sa pinakamataas na leader ng Senado ang nagsabi na Lunes pa pala pinapaikot itong resolution na ito sa kanilang mga kasamahan para makakuha ng mayoryang boto o mayoryang nagda.
Mukhang meron digital footprint eh. Ang nakalagay doon, 12:18 p.m., June 2, 2025.
So, Tuesday pa.
Parang
Monday,
nakalimutan nilang burahin yung digital footprint.
Hindi ko alam if SP Cheese was just going by technicalities. Inisip siguro niya, I can lulusot ako.
Hindi pa final.
Oo, hindi pa final ang iniisip
It's
niya.
being circulated,
But the fact
but
is,
hindi pa
it's being
pinafile.
circulated. We're
Pero
getting
magaling yung
confirmation.
pagkaka-craft ng resolution. Sino kaya yung abogadong gumawa nun?
Parang nagduda si Ami na kaya ng
Baka may
office ni
balita
Bato.
kayo. Hindi si Bato yun.
Yun ang sinasabi ni Ami, nagdududa siya eh. Dahil magaling daw yung pagkakasulat.
Hindi style ni Bato yun. Magaling kang gumawa.
Mayan?
Sabi ko ni Senator Bato, kinonsult niya raw yan. Hindi nga talaga siya yung mismo nagsulat. Sabi niya, confident siya eh. Sabi niya may mga legal minds daw siya na kinonsulta dyan. But basically, Ma'am Annie, aminado siya na nagmula yung concept na yan doon sa speech,
Yes.
doon sa
Tolentino.
stand ni Senator Francis Tolentino na hindi
Francis
na pwede
Tolentino.
mag-crossover. Therefore, dismiss na yan. Since wala naman na kayo halos magagawa sa 19, magko-convene kayo, tapos sinidi adjournment, so wala na yan. So doon magmula yung concept, and then saka daw nabuo itong resolution na ito.
Okay. Andiyan pa si Professor Barry. Prof. Barry, anong tingin nyo? Tingin nyo ba si Bato talaga?
Meron ba siyang capacity?
Ano ka ba? That's beside the point. The point is...
Lahat naman ng mga senador nag-rely on their staff.
Oo nga
So
naman.
I think na
Tuloy si
klaro
Ronaldo.
naman na hindi siya mismo ang nag-draft niyan. Pero ako, I will just reiterate yung point na sinabi ko kanina na napakadelikado ng ganyang klaseng precedent that they are setting dito. Kasi ganito na lang eh. So kung halimbawa pala, may impeachable officer tayo na let's say magkukumit ng malalang krimen. Let's say treachery, treason.
Treason.
Diba? Kikiling sa magpapagamit talaga sa ibang bansa, sa dayuhang bansa.
Dayuhang invader.
Diba? Magbibigay ng mga sikreto ng ating national defense sa China, halimbawa. Yun yung So, basta gawin pala yun within the election period, just before yung transition ng Congress, wala na magagawa ang Senado. Kasi wala nang oras di ba? Hayaan na lang natin na maupo yan kahit na patuloy na ginagamit niya ang kanyang opisina, di ba? Para mag-transmit ng mga sikreto ng ating bansa sa dayuhang bansa kasi wala na tayong magagawa di ba? Yun yung point. Hintayin na natin ang susunod na kongreso. Napaka niyan na lumalabas. hindi pala urgent itong usapin na ito, it's at the Senate's convenience, and therefore, di ba, it should just give way sa mga iba pang mga concerns sila. Isipin mo, between February and now, it's not as if walang ginawa ang Senado. Naalala ko si Senator Amy Marcos, nagkaroon ng ilang hearing, di ba? Nagpatawag ng hearing para imbestigahin yung pagkaka-aresto at pag-transfer kay dating Pangulong Duterte sa ICC. So yung pala, mas importante pa yun kaysa sa impeachment na constitutionally mandated na trabaho ng Senado. Diba? They could make time for that, but they could not make time for a constitutional duty under Article 11. So ako, ang labo nito. Pangalawa, hindi pa rin ako kumbinsido doon sa hindi pwedeng tumawid. Kasi nga, again, same idea. The Senate is supposed to be a continuing body. Diba? Hindi naman yan parang kongreso na yung buong membership na papalitan every 3 years. Madami ng mga desisyon ng ating Korte Suprema na sinasabi na the Senate as an institution is a continuing body. So walang pinag-iba yan sa Supreme Court, for example, na kapag may pending na kaso sa Supreme Court at may nag-retire na justice at may ibang nag-appoint, hindi naman kailangan i-refile yung buong kaso uli, di ba? Dahil nagkaroon ng change in membership Because at the end of the day, it is the continuation and yung continuity ng institution which matters. And supposedly, the Senate is such a body, so they should be able to hear yung ganong klaseng institution. Pero tingnan natin, at this point kasi, nagdi-devolve na into legal technicalities, pero papaalala ko lang na hindi na sana tayo umabot sa puntong ito kung simula pa lang ginawa na nila ang kanilang trabaho. At kung ganyan pa lang pananaw nila mula simula, di sana ginawa na, kumilos na sila habang may oras pa. Hindi inubos ang oras and then gagawing dahilan yung ganyan para wag na lang kilusan itong impeachment complaint na ito.
Prof, may pahabol lang ako isa. Kasi I've also seen this argument going back and forth. One for continuance using Arnold versus Nazareno of 1950. The other one being Balag, I think, versus the Senate of 2019. Yun daw pangontra. What do you think of that? Yung Balag versus the Senate, where supposedly the Supreme Court ruled na everything stops pag nag-adjourn ng Senado.
Una, ang context ng mga desisyon na yan ay with respect to the power of the Senate to actually issue contempt orders. And yung contempt orders relate directly to the power of the Senate as a legislative body. So totoo naman yun. When the Supreme Court pronounced na insofar as legislation is concerned, hindi yan tumatawid ng Kongreso, ayun. Kasi kapag mga bills, kailangan mong i-refile.
Yeah.
Pero dito ko i-draw yung malinaw na distinction. The power to sit as an impeachment court is not legislative in character. Ibang-iba to, di ba? This is a completely different function na binigay sa Senado not as legislators but as representatives of the Filipino people. Yun yung idea dito. Kaya nga kapag nag-constitute sila as impeachment court, hindi sila nauupo as Senate, di ba? They have to take a new oath as senator judges because it is a new role and a separate function. So hindi yung mga sinasite nilang mga kasong yan, Neri versus Senate, etc. Ang ruling dyan apply to legislative functions ng Senado.
Yeah.
Wala pa tayong court decision on the power of the Senate to actually sit as an impeachment court and whether it could continue. And madami ng mga retired justices, mga former members of the Constitutional Commission na nagpahayag ng kanilang opinion na sa tingin nila, because of the Senate's nature as a continuing body, it should be able to continue to hear an impeachment na nasimulan in a previous Congress. And para sa akin din, as a matter of practicality, self-preservation ng lipunan at proteksyon ng mga mamamayan, hindi ba logical naman yon? Ibig sabihin, kung nagtagal yung trial at umabot ng transition ng Senate, wala na. Tapo na lahat yon. Kailangan mag-reset tayo uli. kahit na meron ng mga ebidensyang na-present, kahit na meron ng kailangan mag-reset uli, which is para sa akin absurd and contrary to yung intention and the spirit behind Article 11 of the Constitution.
Wala pang, Attorney, you're correct, wala pang president, pero I consulted this with the with the UP law, yung mga constitutionalists doon, and they seem to be all in agreement na medyo mali yung interpretation ni Senator Tolentino on the Jefferson's Manual of Parliamentary
Yes.
Practice, which clearly states that the impeachment process is not considered discontinued kapag upon the dissolution of Parliament, kasi nga quasi-judicial function na to, hindi legislative.
Tama yung lolo
But-
ko.
Exactly.
So tama yung lolo mo. correct.
Lolo mo si Clinton?
Hindi, tama yung
Jefferson.
lolo ko.
Hindi si Clinton.
Yes.
Yung,
Hindi, kainuman niya si Jefferson eh.
yung impeachment ni Clinton, di ba?
Pero-
105 to 106.
Oo, pero mukhang iba yung pinipili talaga yung ibang interpretation at this point. But unfortunately, that's all the time we
Oh,
have for
yun,
today.
tayo.
We'll end that there. Thank you so much for your time and your insights, former party list representative, Attorney Barry Gutierrez.
Thank you, sir.
Salamat,
Thank
attorney.
you.
It's been a pleasure. Anytime.
Thanks for joining Storycon today. I'm Pamintuan, Editor-in-Chief of the Philippine Star, and Ronald Llamas, our resident political heckler, sabi ni Ed. Join us again tomorrow, 4 p.m. for Storycon. I'm Regina Lay.
I'm Ed Linga. We're one news outsides all the time.